It's been a while since we've covered this series on this channel. We've covered a lot of historic numbers thus far, and relived a lot of famous moments that some of the greatest numbers in the past have been a part of. So let's pick up right where we left off and wrap up the series as we talk about the kings of numbers 81 through 99, plus some bonus numbers at the end of the video. Starting off, we have the 81. Danny Graves is the only driver to have won with this number, but seeing how he only ran 7 races and led one whole lap en route to that victory, I'll keep him away from this number's throne. Who'll occupy it? None other than Kenny Wallace, the younger brother of Rusty Wallace. Kenny's driving isn't as fondly remembered as his personality, but he did have his moments. His full-time career began in 1993 for Sabco Racing in the 40 car. After finishing runner-up in the Busch Series Championship for his brother's team in 1991, many were curious to see how Kenny would do. His first season was fairly disappointing, only garnering 3 top 10s and finishing 23rd in the standings. So he went back down to the Busch Series with a little team known as Philmar Racing. Philmar was a relatively new team just looking to make it big in NASCAR. In 1994, Wallace finished 4th in the standings, scoring 3 wins near the end of the year. For 1995, the plan was simple: run the full schedule in the Cup Series with the team. However, after only making 1 race in the first 5 races of the season, the team scaled back. Wallace recorded a best finish of 18th to start off his time in the 81. But while things started off slow, they certainly wouldn't finish so. Wallace scored 11 top 10s between 1995 and 1998, 64 laps led, and got 2 poles. His time in the 81 may have been short, but it is well remembered and served as a starting stage to showcase his talent. The most recent driver to pilot this number was Jeffrey Earnhardt, who drove for XCI Racing, a team that was an oddity in NASCAR Cup Series history, and only ever ran 1 race at Talladega in 2019, finishing 22nd. A crash on the last lap was the first and last we ever saw of this team. Next up, we have the crown for the 82, which will go to Joe Eubanks. A natural at the dirt tracks, Eubanks' NASCAR career is a pretty interesting one to say the least. In his time in the 82, he scored 34 top 5s, 76 top 10s, 263 laps led, and notched 3 poles, but curiously never got a win with it. Still, he's definitely miles away from the driver in second, who also last drove the 82, Scott Speed. Contrary to his name, he was an F1 bust, who was basically kicked out of the sport due to poor performance. However, he would find some stability after he found a full-time home in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2009 for Red Bull Racing. In 2009, he scored his one and only top 5 at Talladega, and in 2010, he scored a pair of top 10s. Besides those 3 particular races, Scott was pretty terrible, finishing 35th in points in 2009 and 30th in 2010. 2010 not only marked the end of Scott Speed's time at Red Bull Racing, but also the end of the 82's time in NASCAR, at least for the time being. While we're talking about Red Bull Racing in the Cup Series, we might as well talk about one of, if not the best driver they ever had, Brian Vickers, the king of the 83. After winning the 2003 Busch Series Championship, Vickers was touted as the next big thing, and was seen as someone who's going to be an incredible asset to Hendrick Motorsports in the Cup Series, alongside the likes of Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. Throughout his time at Hendrick, he showed mild improvements in terms of his results, but those results were not consistent with the likes of his Hendrick teammates. So in the middle of 2006, he announced that he would be moving to Red Bull Racing, driving the number 83 Toyota Camry full-time. While Vickers failed to qualify for 13 races that season, including that year's Daytona 500, the 23 times he did qualify, he showed he had the talent. He scored 1 top 5 and 5 top 10s, which really brought a lot of momentum into 2008. This time, he qualified for every race, scored 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s, and a pole in the process. Vickers was starting to rebuild his career, and things only got better from there. In 2009, he scored a magical win at Michigan, racked up 4 top 5s and 13 top 10s, and rocketed to 6 poles. He even made it into the chase, though he was pretty terrible in it. Still, going from finishing 38th in the standings to 19th and now 12th is a pretty drastic improvement. 12 races into 2010, things were going pretty well for Vickers, having notched 3 top 5s. However, after Darlington, it was announced that Vickers would miss the rest of the season due to having to undergo treatment for his blood clots in both his lungs and left leg. He returned to the team in 2011, but was really never the same, only scoring 3 top 5s and 7 top 10s. Red Bull shut down their NASCAR program after that season, and Vickers would move to MWR. Now, while the team Red Bull Racing shut down, the car number would not. On December 8th, 2011, they announced they'd be selling their assets to BK Racing, who'd field the number 83 through 2017, where it would make its last appearance with Joey Gase behind the wheel. As for the driver who gets the honors for the 84, we'll give it to Dick Trickle, a master at the short tracks and a driver who made quite the name for himself on the local scene. He made more money racing short tracks across the country than Richard Petty did in Cup. But push came to shove, and he made the full-time switch to NASCAR in 1989 for the Stavola brothers, piloting the 84 car. In those 28 races, he scored 6 top 5s and 9 top 10s, as well as finishing 15th in points. This was enough to win Rookie of the Year, and at 48 years old, a grandfather at the time mind you, he became the oldest Rookie of the Year winner in NASCAR history, a record that's never going to be broken. Cole Whitt last piloted this number for Red Bull Racing, who seems to be making the rounds with the last few numbers in this video, in 2011, where he finished 37th at Homestead. The next driver we'll talk about, the king of the 85, is someone you're probably hearing for the first time, Emmanuel Zervakis. Zervakis started in 83 NASCAR Cup races between 1956 and 1963, and finished in the top 10 in points twice. On top of that, he won twice, both of those coming in the 85. Minus the 2 wins, he recorded 21 top 5s, 38 top 10s, and 2 poles. That's actually a pretty good career, and one that some drivers today could only dream of. Carl Long last piloted this number in 2002, after spending the last couple of seasons racing for Thea Dixon's Mansion Motorsports team on a limited schedule in the Cup Series. Long wanted to run for Rookie of the Year in 2002, but was denied eligibility due to an incomplete season by year's end. With Mansion Motorsports, he attempted 5 races and only qualified for one of those, that coming at Pocono, where he finished 42nd. The honor for the king of the 86 was a toss-up between Buck Baker and Neil Castles. Baker has a win, but ran fewer races with Castles. I'm going to favor longevity over the win, and it's not like Soapy's stats are bad. Quite the opposite, as he scored 9 top 5s and 31 top 10s between 1958 and 1966. This number was last used by Rich Woodland Jr., predominantly a West Coast NASCAR racer in the early 90s, who ran Phoenix in 1993, where he finished 38th. I hate to take the crown away from Baker there, but why don't we hand it to him for the 87? I mean, he's got 26 wins, 166 top 5s, and 253 top 10s, alongside 25 poles. The number's also a pretty important one for Buck Baker. Before NASCAR, he raced quite a bit and used the 87 frequently. And to start off his NASCAR career, this was the number everyone identified him to. He used this number from 1949 all the way until 1971, and made quite the name for himself in this time, winning 2 championships in 1956 and 1957. A Hall of Fame career for sure. Now, in terms of recent drivers to pilot the number, everyone may remember Joe Nemechek, who used this number for his Nemco Racing team in the Cup Series at the beginning of the 2010s, as well as in the mid-90s. But for all that time in the 87, he wasn't the last driver to pilot it, at least not technically. That honor goes to Timmy Hill, who finished 41st at New Hampshire for Nemco in 2014. Now, Nemechek's name was seen on the entry list for the Daytona 500 for 2015, but the team withdrew at the 11th hour, and the 87 has never been entered in a NASCAR Cup Series race since. There are so many good drivers to choose from for the 88, and so many that I'm going to be breaking the rules a little bit for this. No, we're not going to have one king. We'll be abolishing the monarchy here. We're going to have a triumvirate between Dale Earnhardt Jr., Dale Jarrett, and Darrell Waltrip. 2 that are pretty much a dead heat for success, and 1 for synonymity. Okay, to be fair, this is going to be a bit like the 17. If you were a NASCAR fan before the 90s, you might give Darrell Waltrip the honor here, which isn't a bad choice as Waltrip scored 26 wins, 82 top 5s, 97 top 10s, and 18 poles in the famous Dyguard Racing Chevy. If you were a NASCAR fan during its heyday throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s, then you'll likely favor Dale Jarrett. After all, Jarrett scored 28 wins, 129 top 5s, 188 top 10s, and 15 poles, as well as the 1999 Winston Cup Championship. And for a lot of newer or younger fans, Dale Earnhardt Jr. might be the king of the 88, mainly for synonymity and a bit of recency bias. While Jr. only scored 9 wins, 73 top 5s, 139 top 10s, for a lot of recent NASCAR fans such as myself, he's the driver we most associate with the number. The king of the number 89 is Buck Baker, who scored 2 wins with the number, 9 top 5s, 16 top 10s, and notched 2 poles. The 89 was a number that Baker piloted during the early portion of his career. He made his Grand National Series debut in 1959 at Columbia Speedway, piloting the 89 to a 14th place finish. While he didn't pilot the number for long, he more than earns the crown over drivers such as Buddy Schumann and Joe Lee Johnson, who both scored wins with the number. The number was last piloted by Morgan Shepherd, one of NASCAR's most prolific independents, driving for his own team, Shepherd Racing Ventures. He attempted 15 races in 2006, only making it into the race at Richmond, where he finished 43rd, and New Hampshire, finishing 42nd. Atop the number 90 rests Jody Ridley. Ridley's NASCAR career started in 1973 at Atlanta Motor Speedway for Junie Donlevy, who claimed to fame the number 90. In Ridley's first start, he finished a very impressive 5th. Despite showing the talent, he only ran sporadic races in the Winston Cup Series until 1980, where he pledged to run the full schedule for Junie Donlevy. They would finish 7th in their first year together, as well as win the Rookie of the Year honors. The following year, they scored their only win, Ridley's only Cup win, at Dover, and finished 5th in points, behind names like Terry Labonte, Harry Gant, Bobby Allison, and Darrell Waltrip, and who beat names like Ricky Rudd, Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, and Benny Parsons. The sky seemed to be the limit for Ridley and company, but if it was, then they hit the sky. Ridley's 1982 efforts for a championship were in vain, as they finished 13th in points. He never ran a full schedule again after this, and left Donlevy's team. In total, he scored the win, 6 top 5s, 47 top 10s, and an average finish of 14.7, behind the 90. But looking back at his entire career, he's one of the biggest what-if talents in history. What if he went to a much more equipped team than the one he was on? Championships has to be in that conversation. But who needs championships when you have the honors for the king of the number 90? Now, the last driver for this number was David Stremme, who attempted one race for Circle Sport. Many might remember this team for their number 33 that they ran for several seasons, but for Richmond in the late summer of that season, they ran with a different number. At Richmond, the number 33 was renumbered to the number 90 to honor Junie Donlevy, with David Stremme driving. The one-off was painted in the style of Donlevy's Truxmore-sponsored cars, and the deck lid contained the names of the 67 drivers who raced for Donlevy throughout his time in NASCAR, one of them being Jody Ridley. The king of the number 91 is easily Tim Flock. The Flock family is easily the most interesting racing family in NASCAR history. Bobby, Fonte, and Tim all contended for championships throughout NASCAR's pioneer era, and they even had a sister, Ethel, named after the gasoline their father used in his car. The accolades in the Flock family are endless, but for Tim, we have plenty to talk about, especially in the number 91. He piloted this number from 1951 to 1953 for a team owner by the name of Ted Chester. In these 3 seasons, he scored 16 wins, 52 top 5s, 64 top 10s, and an average finish of 9.2. Those stats are just something to behold. He won in his first of 2 championships with the number 1952, a season in which he went on an absolute tear, winning 8 times. Nobody even comes close to what Flock did with the number, mainly because no one else won with it. Newer NASCAR fans might remember the 91 as the expansion car for Ray Evernham's team that Casey Atwood and Bill Elliott piloted for select races. However, the last driver to pilot this number was 2007 Formula One World Champion, 21-time Grand Prix winner, Kimi Räikkönen. With Trackhouse's new initiative dubbed Project 91 giving way to international stars who want to enter the NASCAR Cup Series, we're going to only continue to add drivers to the number 91, and we're only going to continue adding a list of accolades with those drivers. In Project 91's debut, Räikkönen was having a great race going for him before he crashed in an attempt to avoid a spinning Austin Dillon. While the 37th place finish wasn't what Trackhouse Racing hoped, clean air isn't ruled out as a possibility for the 91 in the future, and joining the king of it, Tim Flock, as a winner for it is surely a possibility. The 92's king has gotta be Herb Thomas. Just like the 91, it isn't even a contest as to who the number's king is, as Thomas is the only winner with the number. And not just any winner with the number, he won 42 times, scored 111 top 5s and 141 top 10s in his time between the start of his career in 1949 and close to the end in 1959. On top of that, he won the 1951 Cup Championship, piloting this number for a majority of the races that season. The 92 hasn't really seen many big moments in the sport's history since Herb. Skip Manning scored some top 10s with it in the late 1970s. Stacey Compton got some poles with the number in 2001 during Dodge's return to the sport, and he did it with a rookie crew chief, some guy by the name of Chad Knaus. Brad's brother Brian Keselowski famously maneuvered his way through the field in the second Gatorade Duel at Daytona in 2011 to finish a very impressive 5th, ultimately racing his way into the Great American Race. And the last drivers to pilot the number were David Gilliland, who finished 14th with it in the 2018 Daytona 500, and Timothy Peters, who finished 23rd at Talladega in April, driving for RBR Enterprises. The keys to Ole 93 go to Ted Chamberlain. This was definitely a tough one to hand out, seeing how this number was never visited Victory Lane. Information on Chamberlain is scarce, but we do know he scored 14 top 10s with the number 93, giving him this honor. Ryan Ellis took this number out of the garage stalls of Texas Motor Speedway to a 38th place finish for BK Racing back in 2016. As of the time of recording, that's the last time the number's been used. When you think of the 94 in NASCAR, the golden arches painted atop the bright red car of Bill Elliott come to mind. After Alan Kulwicki won the 1992 Cup Series championship, several drivers got it into their heads that they too could be driver owners. Almost everyone suffered dearly for this, and not the least in Bill Elliott. He left Junior Johnson's team at the end of 1994 and bought an ownership stake in Charles Hardy Racing, thus renaming the team to Elliott Hardy Racing. Bill Elliott had nothing to lose with this endeavor. He was a 40-time winner and a champion of the sport, with dozens of accolades to his name. But losing to a driver who was his own boss by 1 point in 1992 left a bad taste in his mouth. And to Allen's ghost, he wanted to prove that he can win another championship and do it almost entirely as his own boss. For the next several years, he endured the longest drought between wins in NASCAR history. His Darlington win in 1994 seemed like a distant memory as the years rolled by. It wasn't all doom and gloom for Elliott, though. He finished 8th in the 1997 points and showed some flashes of brilliance in this time. But after he left the ownership sphere to focus solely on being a driver, he started winning. While his 13 top 5s and 45 top 10s aren't indicative of the performance he had in his career, he more than deserves to be the king of this number. The king of the number 95 has got to be 7-time Piston Cup champion Lightning McQueen. Wait a minute, that's not right. Ah yes, The king of the number 95 is actually Waltrip. The 95 is very near and dear to Darrell Waltrip, as it was the number he started off racing with on the Winston Cup grid. Waltrip ran the majority of his partial schedule with the number between 1972 and 1974, and recorded 9 top 5s, 18 top 10s, and a pole. These numbers might not seem like much, but this number is largely responsible for getting the ball rolling for a Hall of Fame career. Newer NASCAR fans might remember this number for a team largely owned by the head of a construction company in Tyler, Texas. A team owned by a guy named Bob Levine, along with his wife Sharon. A team called Levine Family Racing. I won't get too in-depth with this team, but if you want to learn more about their history, I suggest you watch Danny B. Talk's video on their rise and fall. In essence, the team came onto the scene beginning in 2011, fielding a variety of different drivers for a partial schedule, most notably Scott Speed, who would help build this operation to the next chapter in 2014 with Michael McDowell. McDowell became their sole driver, running a partial schedule in 2014, 15, and 16 before becoming the full-time driver for them in 2017. McDowell elevated them from riding around in the back of the pack to the middle of the pack. While Speed only got a top 10 with Levine, McDowell scored a top 5 and 3 top 10s. The team was still thinking long-term and wanted to elevate their program even more, so they brought in veteran Casey Kane for the 2018 season. Kane showed what he could do with this team, scoring a top 5 and a top 10, but unfortunately his tenure was cut short due to health issues. The team switched to Toyota beginning in 2019 and assumed the JGR Alliance had Furniture Row seemingly left behind. Matt DiBenedetto would be the driver, and they would have a monstrous campaign, scoring 3 top 5s and 7 top 10s. DiBenedetto led the most laps in that year's Daytona 500, and very nearly won at Bristol that year. To make way for a young JGR prospect, Levine let DiBenedetto go for Christopher Bell. Bell matched Matt's top 10 count, but missed his top 5 count by 1. Throughout his 2020 season, Bell was linked to drive the number 20 the next year. But where would that leave Levine? Well, the answer was apparent in August of that year. Levine would shut down. Bell poetically took the team to a 3rd place finish at Texas Motor Speedway that fall, the team's home race, and the 17th place finish posted at Phoenix that year was the last we'd see of the number. The king of the 96 is Ray Elder. Elder's career is very interesting, as he only ever ran a select amount of races, often 2 or 3 times a year, at the same track every year, mainly driving for himself. Elder was a force in the Winston West Series, but never bothered taking those talents up to Cup to run most of the season. Despite running just 25 races between 1967 and 1976 in the 96, he scored 9 top 5s, 15 top 10s, and even got 2 wins at his home track at Riverside in 1971, a race that technically made him the first winner in the modern era of NASCAR in 1972. A close second to Elder is Richard Childress. He ran 108 races in the car number early on in his career and scored 3 top 5s and 20 top 10s. He even finished as high up as 5th in points, largely piloting the number in 1975. Many NASCAR fans from the 2000s might remember this number plastered on the side of a Hall of Fame racing car, but the latest team to bear the honors of having the 96 in their stable is Gaunt Brothers Racing, owned by Canadian Marty Gaunt. Gaunt began fielding entries in 2017 with DJ Kennington, another Canadian who is the 2010 and 2012 Penny Series champion and the second winningest driver in their history, dating back to 2007. Kennington ran sporadically between 2017 and 2018, recording some solid finishes at the plate tracks. Towards the end of 2018, they had Jeffrey Earnhardt and Jesse Little take turns driving for the team, but neither really impressed. So for 2019, they had Parker Kligerman join the team for a partial schedule. Kligerman got the team their first top 15, but other than that, he wasn't too particularly flashy behind the number. It's also worth mentioning Toyota test driver Drew Herring ran for the team at Homestead, finishing 29th. For 2020, the team got a massive steal in Daniel Suarez, who'd run for the organization full-time. The season was a disaster for GBR, with Suarez missing the Daytona 500 and only scoring 3 top 20 finishes. His best was 18th at Bristol and Kansas. 2021 featured a bunch of different drivers. Ty Dillon ran for the team, missing the Daytona 500, but making it up with a top 20 the following week at the Daytona Road Course. Harrison Burton got a top 20 in his Cup debut at Talladega. Landon Castle ran for the team, finishing far worse than how he ran. And at Kansas in the fall, a familiar face returned in Parker Kligerman. Little did we know this was the last race for GBR. Kligerman had an extremely good car that day. I was at that particular race and was shocked to see the sponsor complimenting the car. Kligerman dueled with Chase Briscoe for a free pass in one of the stages and finished a very solid 20th. With the next-gen car coming the following season and the team not finding a driver or sponsorship for 2022, they quietly shut down, and the 96 went with them. Their ghost does live on, though, in the form of Team Hesselberg. Without a doubt, the best to pilot the 97 was Kurt Busch. Throughout the 1990s, expansion projects for most organizations was in full force. RCR added Mike Skinner, Hendrick added Jeff Gordon, and Roush added a whole host of different drivers. Unfortunately, their aggressive expansion came at a price, and except for Jeff Burton, most of the others weren't fully developed or performing up to par. Roush did have a development organization going for them, which would hopefully compensate in the long term. One of their development stars was Matt Kenseth, who would end up replacing Johnny Benson Jr. before the 2000 season. The move paid off for Roush, as Kenseth started winning and running up front. The next driver's turn to come was a young hotshot Las Vegan in Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch scored 4 wins in the Truck Series in 2000, and also ran a partial schedule in Cup in the 97, as Roush was beginning to let the 97's main driver, Chad Little, go. Many saw Kurt's move full-time in 2001 as too big of a leap. The guy hadn't even run a full Busch Series schedule. This is sort of like the move Todd Gilliland made this past offseason. Very competitive in trucks, but many questioned propelling him straight up to Cup. It was especially shocking considering the 2000 champion, Greg Biffle, would have to go the long way instead of Kurt. Despite this, and despite a horrendous 2001 season that saw him finish 27th in points, Kurt came back with a vengeance in 2002, scoring 4 wins, 12 top 5s, 20 top 10s, and a third-place points finish. This was large in part due to the veteran presence of Jimmy Fennig, who was brought in as a crew chief beginning in 2002. The duo immediately hit it off. While 2003 seemed to be their year to take it all, it was marred by inconsistency. They scored another 4 wins, 9 top 5s, 14 top 10s, but finished 11th in the points. 2004 would be much better, scoring 3 wins, 10 top 5s, and 21 top 10s. And in the chase, they were able to put together a perfect final 10 races that was enough for him to score his first and only Cup championship. Unfortunately, the next year they experienced a sophomore slump, recording 3 wins, 10 top 5s, 21 top 10s, though they still made the 10-man chase. Unfortunately, Kurt got into trouble with the authorities late into the season, thus quashing his hopes of a title and ending his tenure with Roush and the 97 team. The 97's history gets pretty interesting when we're talking about the last team to have this number, Obeka Racing. After running sporadically in the Xfinity Series between 2015 and 2018, and not really amounting to much of anything, news broke in July of 2018 that they obtained some equipment from the bankrupt Cup Series team BK Racing for nearly $300,000. Around September, team owner Victor Obeka announced plans to race at some point in the remainder of the 2018 season. They would end up attempting Talladega in the fall, only to fail to qualify before running the final 3 races of the season. Tanner Berryhill drove for them and finished 39th, 31st, and 38th at Texas, Phoenix, and Homestead respectively. For 2019, they announced they'd be running the full schedule, a move that puzzled many as they didn't do much of anything at the end of 2018. How would they even secure the funding to run the full schedule? The green flag dropped over Daytona International Speedway, and the checkers flew over Homestead, and the team was never seen. Not even on the entry list. The oddity of a race team came into the sport as mysteriously as they left it. The 98's king is Leroy Yarborough, no affiliation to Cale. Leroy's career is full of intrigue, and his life, especially in the end, full of horror. On the Winston Cup grid, he gave everyone around him a run for their money. Leroy's flagship number was a 98, and he was the best to pilot it, taking it to 10 wins in 62 races, along with 32 top 5s and 42 top 10s. Marvin Panch is a close second with 6 wins, but Yarborough gets the honors here due to synonymity. The number was last driven by Reed Sorensen at Phoenix in 2016, where he finished 36th for Premium Motorsports. Now going back to Jack Roush shaping up his team to their golden age in the early 2000s, let's talk about the king of the number 99, Carl Edwards. Edwards took a similar path as Kurt Busch to the top step of NASCAR. He tore it up in the Truck Series, finishing 8th in points in 2003 with 3 wins and 4th in 2004 with another 3 backflips. However, with Jeff Burton on his way out halfway through 2004, Edwards was brought in a bit early. He was announced as a full-time driver for their organization beginning in 2005. Many were unsure of the move, but Edwards proved with his 4 wins, 13 top 5s, 18 top 10s, 2 poles, and a 3rd place points finish that yes, oh yes, the man can drive. Throughout his time in the number, he would record some of the best moments of his career and some of NASCAR history. In the 2005 season, he had an iconic duel with Jimmy Johnson for his first career win. In 2008, he scored 9 wins and seemed to be well on his way to his first championship before Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson turned on the wick in the chase. In 2011, he tried again, dueling Tony Stewart for the championship. The task was simple: win at one of Edwards' best tracks, Homestead Miami Speedway. But while Edwards was good, that fateful day of 2011, he wasn't great. Edwards wasn't known for his restrictor plate track prowess, but he showed off his Roush horsepower at the beginning of 2012 by winning the pole for the Great American Race. Unfortunately, that was about the only highlight that year, as he went winless for the 3rd time in his career. The next 2 years would see some big moments, but his final win with the number and Roush Fenway Racing came in 2014 at Sonoma Raceway. In all, his 23 wins, 108 top 5s, 187 top 10s, and 13 poles across nearly a decade of competition with the 99 give him the honors over his predecessor Jeff Burton, who contended for titles in the late 90s, as well as scoring 17 wins. Now I mentioned Sonoma's Edwards' last win, but let's fast forward 8 years to the 99's last win, at least as of the time of recording. Daniel Suarez would take the 99 back to Victory Lane in Wine County, and it would be Suarez's first career win. Suarez is slowly but surely positioning himself to be a top 10 driver in the Cup Series, and with Trackhouse behind him and behind the 99, it seems that the number is in good hands for the next few years. Now we get into the bonus round of sorts, in terms of numbers 0 through 09. It's worth mentioning the distinction between the 0 and the 00. With that being said, the king of the number 0 is Dale Coward. By far his most famous quote, and one that encapsulates his entire career, was said after he made the 1992 Daytona 500, "I ain't never won a race, though I ain't lost a party." Coward's NASCAR career isn't anything special, and there aren't any stats to really marvel at, but it's his jovial nature off the track, the effort he put in as he scratched and clawed his way through the seasons, race after race, and the close ties he built with the number 0 that give him the honor. Why the number 0? Well, he had the honors of being the only NASCAR Cup Series driver on the grid whose car number matched his chances of winning. Reading on his career is a must, and I highly recommend you guys dive deep into the enigmatic career of Dale Coward. For the number 00, we have David Reutimann. Reutimann mainly piloted this number from 2007 to 2011, and slowly but surely made his way into the top 20 in points, placing him securely in the midfield. While his highest points finish was 16th in 2009, he did score 2 wins. One was at the Coke 600 in 09, Justin Haley style, and the other was at Chicagoland, where he basically wore out Jeff Gordon for the win. But in these several seasons, he recorded 12 top 5s and 22 top 10s, along with 3 poles. Newer NASCAR fans might remember this number in the last several years, being owned and operated by Starcom Racing. Starcom took this number for one last spin at Phoenix with Quinn Houff in 2021, where they finished 37th. For the number 01, let's give it to Joe Nemechek. After being let go by Hendrick Motorsports near the end of the 2003 season, Nemechek found a home in MB2 Motorsports. For the next couple seasons, he would post some moderately good results, scoring 5 top 5s, 21 top 10s, and a win at Kansas in 2004. While he wouldn't drive for the team long, leaving partway through 2006 due to dismal results, the number 01 survived for a couple more seasons and took part in 2 significant moments in NASCAR history. The first was a photo finish at the 2007 Daytona 500, where Mark Martin, in metaphoric irony, lost just narrowly to Kevin Harvick. And the second was in the fall of 2008 with Regan Smith, who was forced below the yellow line and took the checkered flag. However, because he went below the yellow line, he wasn't given the win, and that win would go to Tony Stewart. Speaking of Regan, he was the last driver to pilot the number, having driven it to a 34th place finish at Homestead, Miami, just a few weeks after that heart-wrenching Talladega loss. The king of the 02 is Mark Martin. Martin had a tumultuous beginning in NASCAR, driving for 6 different teams from 1981 to 1987. He made 5 starts in 1981, driving for a team owned by Bud Reeder, earning 2 poles at Nashville and Richmond, and finishing 3rd in his final race at Martinsville. Martin competed full-time in 1982 with the team he co-owned, competing for Rookie of the Year honors. If you won Rookie of the Year, they get the bonus money they'd need to stay in the business long term. Unfortunately, the team struggled for consistency, posting just 8 top 10s and had DNFs galore. Martin finished 14th in the final standings, and finished 2nd to Jeff Bodine for Rookie of the Year, and because of that, Martin and Reeder parted ways after the season. Still, his 3 top 5s in total and 10 top 10s give him the honors here. The irony of it all is Martin is a driver who was plagued by seconds all throughout his NASCAR career. The last time the number was used was with David Gilliland, who actually ran 3 races for Joe Gibbs Racing towards the end of 2009. He didn't really do much, proven by the 29th place finish he posted at Homestead that year. Richard Brickhouse gets the honors for the number 03. Brickhouse is a driver best known for winning the inaugural Talladega 500 in 1969, after a boycott of the top stars of the sport at the time because of concerns with tire wear with the high rate of speeds at the racetrack. But he did more than just that. I mean, just look at what he did in the 03, posting 2 top 5s and 7 top 10s. Butch Leitzinger, a driver best known for his sports car racing achievements, last drove this number in 1994 for his own team at Watkins Glen, finishing 31st. Herschel McGriff, yes, that Herschel McGriff, who became the oldest driver to ever start a NASCAR Sanctioned Series race at age 90, gets the honors for the number 04. His career honestly deserves a video in and of itself, but instead of serving the full meal, let's give out the appetizer, which are his stats in the 04. In 32 races with the number, he scored 3 top 5s, 7 top 10s, and even led 7 laps. The number 04 was raced around the Cup grid one last time in 2009 with road ringer PJ Jones. Jones ran Sonoma, where he finished 43rd, and Watkins Glen, where he finished 41st for Robbie Gordon Motorsports. The king of the 05 is David Sisko. Sisko was a Winston Cup driver who ran 133 races from 1971 to 1977 and was the 1969 Nashville Fairgrounds track champion. An ace at the short flat tracks, Sisko mainly piloted the 05 in 1972 and 1973 for McGee Racing before buying out the team and running it himself. The next several years and 121 races with him saw the 05's best days, where he notched 6 top 5s, 31 top 10s, and led over 80 laps. Nobody else wheeled the 05 better than he did. That didn't stop some from adding on to the 05's legacy. The last time a piece of its history was added to the puzzle was with Ed Ferry, who finished 36th at Watkins Glen in 1993. We've talked about Henry Neal Castles a bit in the series, and there's still plenty more to unravel. One thing is, he's the king of the 06. How? Well, he scored 30 top 5s and 83 top 10s, which make him the ruler of this plot of land. Sam Hornish Jr. last drove this number in 2007 for Team Penske. He attempted several races at the end of the season, failing to qualify almost every time. He finally got in at the penultimate race of the season, thus allowing him to make his debut, where he finished 30th. Homestead's 37th wasn't enough for the 06 to return the following season, and thus far it hasn't ever been brought out of the old barn. Well, here's a king many are familiar with, Clint Bowyer, the king of the 07. But to talk about Bowyer, we first have to go back to the beginning of the 2005 season. Richard Childress Racing had a vacant seat to fill for the number 30 car. They also had sponsorship to fill with American Online leaving. They would hire Dave Blaney, who drove select races for the team in 2004, to drive in 2005, and their sponsor would be Jack Daniels. It marked one of the first hard liquor sponsorships in NASCAR history. The team also changed its number to the 07 to commemorate the whiskey company's slogan, Old Number 7. With Blaney, they only scored 2 top 10 finishes during 2005 and finished 26th in the standings, so they would hire RCR development driver Clint Bowyer for 2006. For the next several years, the 07 would be treated to a good time, getting 2 wins in New Hampshire and Richmond, as well as notching 16 top 5s and 45 top 10s between 2006 and 2008. For 2009, Casey Mears would move over to the 07, but his results were not up to par. Thus, Jack Daniels would leave the team and the number 07 entry would shut down. Robbie Gordon would use it for Michigan and Bristol in 2010, but after that, he brought it back into the shed. EJ Trivet gets the honors for the 08, having notched 11 top 10s in his 41 races between 1969 and 1970. Terry Labonte was the last to pilot it, and surprisingly the number made it all the way to 2009 with Carter Simon Racing. Homestead was its last race where it finished a distant 42nd. And last and certainly least, we have the 09 with Brad Keselowski. There are plenty of other moments to look at other than the race many immediately think of when they think of the 09. Such as the 2 other top 10s in that Talladega spring race in 2009. But it is that Talladega win, the lone top 5 with the number, that largely gives Keselowski the honors here. Keselowski would cement himself in NASCAR with the win, holding his line and holding a pretty wheel all the way into the checkers. What would follow after the win is a Hall of Fame career that saw 5 more Talladega wins, 34 more wins, and a championship. So, there you have it. After several months of working on the series, it's finally complete. The king of each number in NASCAR, 1 through 99 and 0 through 09. I hope you guys enjoyed the series. It was certainly quite the fun making it from start to finish. So, until next time, this has been the news. I'll see ya.